Quickly about me, I am a pilot, I'm a flight instructor, I am a commercial pilot, mainly fixed wing, backcountry type aviation. I'm also a technologist. I've had a couple different software startups. I was early at Mozilla and helped get some nonprofits off the ground too. And as a cartographer, well, I feel like I have a bit of an imposter syndrome going on right now. I'm self-taught. I'm here because I've been using lots of different open source tools to build these mapping projects, and I saw a QGIS class at my local community college, so I was like, oh, I'll go to that and see what that's all about. And that was Patrick Kennelly's class on cartography in Central Oregon, where we live. And he's like, after about 2 or 3 classes where I'm just overwhelming him with questions about all these different tools, he's like, you know, I think maybe you should go to NACIS this year and submit a talk and see if what they think. And so here we are. Yeah. All right, so what are we talking about today? Are there any pilots here? Just curious. Anybody? No? All right, well, we got one. Okay. What we're talking about mainly is some work that I've been doing down in Mexico, mainly in Baja, around creating a VFR sectional. So a VFR sectional is, in flying, there's 2 different main types of flight rules: visual flight rules and instrument flight rules. Instrument flight rules are what the airlines and stuff use, kind of the big jets, and it's when you're flying through clouds and you're being controlled by ATC. Visual flight rules are where it's just the little airplanes looking out the window, flying around, and making sure you don't run into things by visual line of sight. And so in Mexico, it's very easy to fly down to Mexico yourself in a small little airplane and do this, but there are no charts. The best charts that we have are about, I think 15 years old WAC charts from the FAA. They quit making those. And on top of that, the Mexican government has been rapidly changing all of their statuses of if airports are able to be used or not, if they're licensed, is part of trying to curb cartel activity. So what the Mexican government does is about every 2-3 months, they publish this spreadsheet, which there's a little clip of on the bottom there. The last spreadsheet that they published about a week ago didn't even include lat-long information, much less they reduced about 10 columns off of it. Every single time they release it, they change the information in it, so scripts to parse it and all that stuff don't work. And so I've been working on normalizing this data in a way that we could actually produce a chart for it. One example of this is Cedros Island, which is an island off of the west coast of the Baja Peninsula. Every time you go to file a flight plan in Mexico, which you have to do, you talk to the comandante at the airport, and the comandante goes and looks at your flight plan and stamps it. Well, in order for him to stamp your flight plan, it has to be on this list. And so I was going to a place called Cedros Island, and I saw it was not licensed on the list. And I go to the comandante, and I'm like, can I go to this? I know there's commercial air service there, but it's not licensed. And he's like, oh yeah, you can go, no problem. So I'm, okay, I'm good. The next day, I go to actually file my flight plan, and the comandante that's working that day goes, oh no, on the list, it says it's not licensed, you can't go. But don't worry about it. Just file to the place right next to it that's licensed and just fly to it anyway. And so it's Mexico, it's a little bit crazy, but we're trying to put all this together. And then there's this resource. This is Jack. Jack runs Baja Bush Pilots. Jack is in his 80s, and he knows every single pista or airport down in Mexico from his own experiences down there. He puts out a book, this red book here. And so I've been collaborating with Jack. Jack's book does not use this Mexican data at all, but he does have all that little local information and details about, go talk to so-and-so about the best margaritas, or, this airport is one that you should avoid because it's got, bad things going on, and so on. And so essentially the product that we're building here is a combination of this latest up-to-date information about license and status combined with Jack's information. And so quickly, flight instructor in me has to come out here for a second. This is a VFR sectional. This is not my map. This is the sectional map that the FAA puts out with the legend I put up on the side, just to help you start to think through how this all works. It's very information dense. It is very, very good in my opinion because it's able to express a lot of information really quickly. You can use this chart to just get everything you need to know about flying into like the Redmond Airport that you see there in the middle. That's the control tower frequency followed by the frequency for the weather. That's the ATIS. There are some things that get a little bit tricky on there, like the elevation is the 3082, but the 70 is the runway length. It's easy to get those sort of things confused unless you don't know the area. That's 7,000 feet that's truncated. This is actually a shot, our home airstrip. This is in Central Oregon, is the Flying Alpaca there on the kind of 5 miles out of Redmond there. That's a 5-mile circle around Redmond, so to give you some idea of scale. It's really dense reading these charts. So part of wanting to do all this work in kind of modern web stack is to try to simplify viewing it so you can actually get benefits of scaling in and out and so on. I aspire to this, but I still got a long ways to go before my map has all this information in it. This is what the flight supplement looks like. So this is if you wanted to see more about the Redmond Airport, this is what you get kind of on a details point of view. So in our analogy, this is kind of like what we're getting from Jack. You see the airport remarks kind of buried near the bottom there. That's kind of, the FAA makes it really tricky to read all this stuff, but that's the equivalent of what we're trying to pull out around, here's what's going on with the airstrips. All right. So what are we bringing to the table that's really never been seen before is a map. As far as I know, nobody's charted this data. And we're focusing on Baja right now, but it's for all of Mexico. It's this licensing status, which again is changing really regularly. Just in this last update, there were probably 30 aerodromes that changed status in some form, 30 of about 2,000. The local knowledge from Jack, a common name. If you go to Bahia de Los Angeles, if you're flying down there as American, you're referring to that as Bay of LA over the radio, so just sort of getting us consistent language around that. Confirmed frequencies, really the only way to get the frequencies on some of these places is they're painted on the airstrip, and so by going down there, you look down and see it, and it's kind of handy to know what it is, so when you're 20 miles out, you can start making calls instead of needing to be over the airstrip. Time zone info, not too hard on that one. One little neat thing about this that we're using OpenStreetMap for is on runway surface length and heading, and it turns out there's a lot of missing data out there. So instead of, essentially the way the tool works is it brings in the OpenStreetMap data, and if it's missing, then we go and contribute it back to OpenStreetMap, and then the tool is able to suck it in again from that. And then finally, we also do all the US and Mexican ports of entry for border crossing reasons. This is not the map yet. This is those are the contributions so far we've made to OpenStreetMap across Baja. The technical approach on this is it's a vector-based map, and that's really been where I've been trying to go after my VFR type chart. And then we contribute as much as we can. And then I built a whole back end for Jack to be able to update his information. And for an 80-year-old, he's doing a pretty good job of using that. So, all right, we'll flip over to this. So first I'll just show you, let's see, that's the map. The back end, Jack's notes, you'll see is the object here. Let's have that load. So this is a Django tool. This is our back-end sort of admin interface for managing all this data. So just to show you an example, these are airports that aren't licensed, but we have notes about. Green airports are licensed airports, kind of the stuff you would expect. I'll jump in here to Bay of LA, which I talked about earlier. The first data up here is the official Mexican data that we pull in. And then we pull in all of, this is the OpenStreetMap data being joined in off of doing geospatial joins. And then we join in other information if we can get it from a couple other data sources. And then Jack's able to go override everything. And so this is Jack's area to even go move the pins and stuff, because sometimes the data we get out doesn't even, it's like a dot in America or something. It doesn't even make sense, but we'll go and find it. And then has he visited it or not? And I've visited a lot of these too, but this is really focusing on getting his information out. And then here's the map itself. So if we come in here, first, there's quite a bit. Again, none of this stuff is charted and people know about. Like, for instance, this cluster up here, Jack had no idea that there's all these licensed airports just right on the other side of the border. These are all mainly farm strips in this area, so they're not of any really tourist interest. Most of the tourist stuff is going to be on the coasts. But like, for instance, if we come down here to Bay of LA again, in here, we see some of Jack's notes, and these aren't very big down here, but what it starts with is it says, although visited frequently, this is not a licensed pista. And so this is an example of one of the ones where it says not licensed, but we just know a lot of people go there. And I flew into Bay of LA not too long ago. That's where that picture of me siphoning fuel off of another airplane was. And what happens when you land at these unregistered airports is like the federales, which are the Mexican military, come out with their guns and their dogs and stuff and like check out your airplane, write down your license, write down all your tail number and all that stuff. And then they just walk away and we're like, it's not licensed, but I think we're good. In that case, I was flying for the Baja 1000 rally race that was going on down there, so I think it might have just been one of those things where they look the other way. But anyway, just knowing, hey, yeah, you can go there, but you're not really supposed to, is kind of a helpful thing to know. Because I guess the point as we're getting all this is like there is no pure source of truth for this information, and we'd like to be the source of truth, but there's kind of this combination of what the Mexican government is publishing versus like how they're acting, and so how do we really know? But anyway, as we talk about the map a little bit, just some of the things, and this is still a work in progress for me, but we bring in the places that are ecologically sensitive, because when you're buzzing around with your plane at 500 feet, you don't want to buzz the wildlife preserve. We bring in all the roads. Those are really useful for airplanes for both emergency landing areas and also the best way to cross the passes. Again, when you're flying low level around, follow the roads. Just really nice things we can get from doing vector data that we can't do on a normal chart is just keep bringing in all these different visual reference points for if we're talking to other pilots over the air, oh, well, that big mountain, that's El Diablo, and that sort of stuff, which seems like so obvious to people that have looked at OpenStreetMap data, but to actually express this stuff in a way that we can consistently communicate with as pilots is really helpful. The yellow is residential areas, which again is useful for places that are meant to be either avoided or if you have a problem to avoid, and so on. So, yeah, that's kind of the bulk of that. Let me jump back over the presentation. There's my mouse. Some of the challenges on this is getting offline data. The vector data is relatively easy, but the terrain data, just because of its size, is difficult. It is a hard requirement, though, just because when we're airborne with this stuff, we definitely don't have internet connections, and it's pretty useless. That's why everything today is pretty much static raster maps, on iPads and so on. But the challenge here is how do we bring vector data and make it fully offline? And then the Mexican government just dropping all this information. That's a challenge. Like they gave me 30 new airports, but they didn't tell me where they were. So it's like, what do you do with that? Yeah, exactly. It's a little hard. I guess more field research is required. So what's next? I'm bringing in more detailed views of the airports themselves. Right now, the vector data providers drop little things like windsocks and so on. And so I want to be able to go zoom all the way in and actually get all the taxiways, which all that stuff is mainly in OpenStreetMap, but it's not set up in a way that a pilot could use. And then we're starting to do some aerial imagery collection. This is up in Alaska. Got my little drone flying there and the Starlink, and then the aerial imagery we captured is there on the bottom left, and uploaded that stuff to OpenAerialMap. So the goal is to bring in this aerial mapping data too for all of the airstrips, and then that will also allow us to generate the digital surface models and everything, which is just helpful and cool, and in order to have this all bundled together. So with that is the presentation. That's just my email and the QR code if anyone is interested. And we have 5 minutes. Okay, yeah. Any questions? I do have one more thing to show if we do have time. But any questions? Nothing? Go ahead.
Would you ever consider creating it
Right. So the question was, would we open it up to other pilots? And like, absolutely. What we're trying to do here is kind of have more of this like curated stack of like known kind of commercial grade information on it. There are a number of backcountry organizations in the U.S. that like, there's a Utah backcountry pilot, and there's a Idaho backcountry pilot, and they all put out their KML files with all the places and their like local reports. I think that would be good. What I would like to do is create like kind of a single source. In the commercial flying world, there's a company called Jeppesen, and Jeppesen has charts for every commercial airport out there that's sort of globally universal. And I think it'd be cool to have a Jeppesen of this more general aviation style flying. And that would have to require, people coming in. And there's a bunch of different products, people that do it. It's just all US focused. There just isn't a lot for these non-US places right now. But yeah.
How's the federal feel about this? They comment yet on your work on this?
They probably don't even know about it. The one thing though, we do call up and ask them a lot of different questions, like, hey, why do we have commercial air service into Cedros, but it's not licensed? And then like in the next update, Cedros says licensed. And we're like, oh, I wonder if we influenced that or not, But no, their leadership is turned over a bunch and all this stuff. So when we think we have a contact at the Mexican government, it changes and there's all sorts of issues. So we try, but yeah, I don't know. Yep. Well, yeah, that's just my email. For the website, so this is a product that we're shipping through the Baja Bush pilots. And it isn't something where every winter, which is when it's nice down in Baja, there's this annual whales trip where you go down and visit the whales. And we're going to release it at that, which is in February. And so it's not something you can get. Yeah, I'm just showing you kind of my work in progress on all this. Yeah. Yeah. 2 minutes? Okay. Oh, one more question? Yeah.
I'm curious what you plan to do with the imagery and the raster data there. Do you plan on making like a supplemental chart book, or is that all going to be incorporated into the main app?
Yeah, I plan to put that all in the next step after this is I have to create like an app, like an iPad app. There's an app called ForeFlight, which pretty much every pilot uses. Like, you can't fly without it at this point, essentially. And you think of it as like a vector competitor to ForeFlight, but with the differentiator being there's high resolution satellite imagery, or not aerial imagery on it as well. But that would get bundled in and have to go in an app at the end of the day, just because you could distribute it on the web, but the utility is much less. And the core use of it is actually more getting the surface model, so you can determine like the slope. In like hardcore backcountry stuff, there can often be like 3-4% grades on the airstrips, and you want to know which way those are. So when you land, you're landing uphill or taking off downhill, and that kind of stuff. And so it's more about the surface models than the imagery itself. Although just being able to see it, what you're getting into, is useful. Like, oh, I should park there, and so on. But, okay, yeah.
Are you going to continue developing this completely online, or are you going to do something parallel, like you make your own chart supplement? Or is that something that pilots just want to get rid of and do only online?
Well, I think that this, like, you mean put out a book?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Jack, I think, still wants to put out a book. I don't know. I'm definitely more on the let's get this on an iPad, just because it's the licensing status changes so frequently. It's kind of hard to publish a book about it. Like, the locations obviously don't, but if it's actually licensed or not. I mean, I suppose we could build a book where it has the base data and then do that. But I'm just also like, let's just put it on an iPad. And I did write code to generate like a LaTeX PDF automatically, and so that we could do that. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to end up doing it. So, okay. All right. Thank you.